Good afternoon, everyone. Today, in our We Leadership interview series, we have Krish Shankar. He doesn't need any introduction. Nevertheless, he's an alumni of XLRI. He's worked with Unilever uh, in multiple countries. He's the one who turned around the human capital in Airtel and made it one of the best employers, not just by Aon Hewitt, but also by Gallup globally. Airtel was in top 20. And then he also had a wonderful stint at Infosys, where again this was a massive turnaround. With so many turnarounds and so much contribution to business and human capital, uh, we have huge amount of wisdom, which I'm sure the industry and the young professionals will benefit from. Welcome, Krish, to our show. Thank you for sparing time and joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Prashant. Go ahead. Happy to be sharing whatever little I know.
Thank you, Krish. That's your humility. Now, I wanted to understand, uh, and people want to understand, how did your education in XLRI, or even before in your school and undergrad, impact your personality, your career, your contribution?
Well, no, I think tough to say exactly, but I think the 2 years in XLRI has been were pretty, transformative because, for one, I studied in various schools in Bihar and Bengal, but then,
Mhm.
I did my college out of Chennai. But still very kind of not much of an exposure to the larger world. But we were like very much quite traditional in what we were doing. But I think XLRI was phenomenal because it gave a great perspective. At least for the first time, we understood about business and various things, and it was quite interesting. I think what also helped was all the interactions with not only professors, the summer training, etc. But you know what? While all this helps, I
Mm.
believe that we are a product of a journey. We continuously evolve as we go around. So
Yes.
not only those couple of years in XLRI, but my early jobs, the early careers that I've had, initially at Aisha for a couple of years, then at Unilever, all of those helped. And I think, I must say that, we learn a lot from the people around us. And I think that's truly a testament to all the kind of experiences you have where you really learn from the other people. So I think all those have really helped me in my journey.
That is so nice. That is so nice. Well, would you like to talk more about your Unilever journey? What were the key contributions, key achievements during your tenure?
I don't think there's anything about achievement or contributions. I mean, looking back, it's been quite a long time. I worked for about 21 years with Unilever, various jobs. But I think stepping back, what I would really look at from Unilever is that firstly, I learned a lot, yeah, from Unilever. The very fact in Unilever is that I did many jobs. While I started off in a factory, I also moved out of HR and did a business role. So I was running part of the export business and then moved back to HR to do recruitment, then training. Then I was in the corporate office in London. Then I came back and did what we call as the management development and the business partnering for the foods business. Then I went to Unilever in Singapore, where there were many projects that came up, and Unilever also went through many transformations, and therefore it was great learning all of that. I think over those 20 years, Unilever changed from being a very strong country-focused company to a much more global company. It also changed its organization, and that also kind of gave us opportunities to really contribute in a much more global way. So yes, I think firstly, more than my contribution, I think I learned a lot in Unilever. I learned a lot from lots of people there. And I think over time, then we started kind of seeing how we can contribute, bring our kind of abilities on a global scale. I think the other thing that one would really look at for me is that really being able to develop and kind of have many people who I've worked with. A lot of HR people. I think many of the people I've worked with are all great HR professionals now, India, as well as the people I've worked with in Singapore who all kind of. So I think, sometimes, maybe it's a little bit of working with them, helping them out. Also, that's probably one of the other things that one, feels happy about.
So, Levers is known to produce CEOs, and of course, a lot of CHROs are also all ex Levers. Uh, what is that is very different about Levers that has become a CEO and CXO factory, which could be very useful to know and understand how other CEOs and CHROs could replicate it in their own organizations.
I think the first thing about levers is that it takes good people. Yeah, so therefore there are lots of great people, and you learn from lots of great leaders. Yeah, so therefore the whole environment is great people all around. So you learn from each other. So that's, I think, clearly, if you're working with the best people, then you also develop. I think the second thing is Unilever also those days believes a lot in developing people through different roles. And I think if you look at why is it a CEO factory, is that if you look at any MBA, they would start with sales, then move to marketing, do some global role, come back in a bigger. So therefore you have various experiences that they gain, both in sales, marketing, running a business, etc. And I think that really helps them to be like a CEO. Sometimes businesses tend to grow people in a silo. I think levers kind of gives different opportunities. I think the other thing that levers does is it gives great responsibilities to people very early on. For example, for a person who's just a management trainee, 1 year after training, they would be put as the HR manager of a large factory, with about 2,000 people, 1,000 people, etc. And being the head of HR or head of IR or ER or whatever it is in that factory for a young person is quite a big thing. So similarly in sales, you take somebody as an area sales manager who's just about 1 year from MBA, but then he's running a territory of over 1,500 crores, which is pretty big. So I think it gives them big jobs. I think the third is a lot of mentoring right through, right from the time you join, and then the ecosystem of leaders really help you. So especially in HR, I think like for me, I moved across many jobs in HR. I would have probably done every job except Comp and Ben within Levers. I've done everything there. But what it really helped was because you get a good perspective, you also understand business. I spent 4 years running part of a business. And that really helps you really be a kind of a CXO in any field. So I think great people, great early training, mentoring, development, great movement around experiences, and also lots of global exposure. So I think all this makes Levers a great place for developing CEOs and CXOs.
Absolutely, absolutely wonderful. Very simple but very wonderful philosophy. Hire the best, put them through rotation, put them together, and give them early responsibility. And you can create great CEOs and CXOs. That's really wonderful. Now, if you were to contrast Airtel experience with Lever's experience, how was Airtel experience different from Lever's experience?
No, Airtel, when I joined, Airtel was a growing company. Yeah. I joined Airtel in 2007. Levers had very established systems, etc. Very strong, and and there are lots of people there for a long time. So Airtel was very different. It was evolving. Lots of things were in process. At that time, Airtel were three different companies which had come together as one Airtel. I think one of the things that really I enjoyed in Airtel was really setting the foundation for the HR systems. Yeah, not only so, I think there are many things that Airtel did well there, because there was a great focus on engagement, great focus on hiring, etc. But we also expanded and said, okay, what else we need to do? So therefore, we created a roadmap and we said, let's focus more on building leaders, setting good talent management systems, looking at performance management in a much more simpler way, and also creating a kind of a culture within Airtel where I think it's about, again, it's a high energy company, but also how do you keep that high energy and ensure that people also learn? So the many small things that we did where there was this great focus on talent, great focus on growing people, and using that to really grow the business. So I think the difference between what I would call as Unilever and Airtel is that very different companies, very different stages in their kind of evolution. I think in Airtel the challenge was very different. The challenge was all about how you can really make and create something new, build new systems and create kind of a thing. So that was the difference in it.
Fantastic, fantastic. And if you were to further contrast it with Infosys, because Infosys has had been there for a very long time, and it was already a very large company in India and globally. Uh, but still, no, it was going through challenges which were well documented in media those days. So, how would you contrast
Yeah.
Infosys compared to Levers and Airtel?
Yeah. No, I think, see, one thing is the HR or the role of HR in each of these companies is very different because of the industry. Infosys is a very B2B kind of an industry compared to Unilever, which is a very B2C. Yeah. But being B2B, there are very different things, strong focus on customers, strong focus on client relationships, which will also mean that you wanted to get people who spend more time with their clients rather than move around. So therefore you don't go there and say, I want to move people every 2 3 years, which may not really work, because there you need much more continuity, much more focus. How do you build those relationships? So there's a lots there. The other thing about Infosys in the IT industry is that here it's like a professional services company, and you have a large number of people that you really work with. And how do you really manage that? And here, sometimes it is not about individuals, but about how do you really set systems to really manage at scale. Yeah. So Infosys was global, huge scale, a very different industry. Yeah. And therefore, the challenges there were very different. I think, and therefore, what I also learned across all of this is in HR, one size doesn't fit all. What may work well as leadership development or talent management in one company may not work in the other company. You got to really think about what is needed there and how do you really fine tune that. So that's one of the learnings I've had working across various industries. I think in Infosys, I think it was all about how do you really build talent, and there are talent at very different levels. The engineers or the software programmers at the one end of the spectrum, the leaders there, the leaders who are in the sales and delivery teams there, the consulting kind of teams. How do you build and how do you really look at their talent development? It's very different. So you got to really manage to in a very different way. So yes, I think, and it also helped me, firstly learn this new industry, but also help saying how can we as a company stabilize our leadership, build a pipeline of great leaders, build a pipeline of good HR practices so that we continue to grow. And also in all of this, we have to be ahead of the technology skills. The half life of skills in tech sectors is pretty low, and therefore people have to continuously be trained. And you also have to really ensure that you manage the attrition in the right way. So yeah, so therefore putting that framework for training people, incentivizing them to train, putting the engine for training, deploying them and ensuring that they are ahead of the curve is critical there. So yeah, those were some of the challenges. I think I've enjoyed working across all these companies, each very different and each very different challenges, and I've learned from each of them very differently.
That's really so nice and very aptly put. And you brought out the differences in the business situation and the business models reflecting in the HR models so well, which should be quite educative for all of us. And you know, I think while you were there, you also witnessed the great resignation era. So how did you manage to keep the attrition in control while the industry was on the fire?
Well, see, I mean, it's not, nobody could keep attrition under control. That was the time when attrition was high all over the place. Nobody could keep attrition there. And it was a phase because of the industry dynamics. Huge demand for digital talent, huge growth among startups, huge growth in various digitization efforts of many companies. And therefore, that really fueled huge demand for talent. I think you got to manage it across two or three levels. I mean, you have to really say, is there anything you want to do to your value proposition as an employer, and how do you really manage that? And I think people wanted more flexibility. They wanted, so how do you really plan that? That was one part. The second part is compensation. How do you really tweak that? Because that was very big, and we don't have endless budgets. So given the budget limitations, how do you manage it? Which skills to really focus on, and which critical resources to kind of manage? So therefore, you got to think about how do you really do that. And the third one is to build a pipeline. So therefore, yes, there will be attrition, but how do you continuously have a pipeline that will ensure that you get your talent feeding in? So yes, so it's about rethinking your EVP, all the elements of the EVP, especially things like flexibility, development, career growth. The second one is how do you really manage and prioritize, given that there are limited limited budgets, and how do you look at which skills and what, and focus on the key people? How do you continue to build a pipeline of talent? And I think at Infosys, what we also did was, when we relooked at all of this, we said we'll change our EVP, and we said yes, people will get much more faster growth and faster promotions if they perform well, and that really helped us really drive growth and give opportunities to many people. So yeah, it was an interesting thing. We learned a lot. But again, I think it's a phase in the industry that we had to really manage.
So that's again nice learning as to if attrition is given, how do you manage business continuity along with the attrition? No, there's this huge debate between work from office and work from home and hybrid. And there are a lot of researches going on all over the world, and of course, most of it in US. And I mean, all of us understand that the real estate cost is 6 to 10% for any company of the revenue. And the best of the companies finally make only 20% profit. So as a percentage of profit, the real estate cost is anywhere between 30 to 50%. If the companies could save the real estate cost, they would be very happy, but they're still willing to invest in real estate. So why are they willing to invest in real estate? What are the merits and demerits of work from home versus work from office? And
Well, I
what do you
think
see
I
the
think
future
the
as?
theory that you need less real estate is completely gone. I think people have now realized they need better real estate. Now, why is that so? I think what has happened is, firstly, because of all this pandemic, it's very clear through technology that people could work from home. Yeah. And people also wanted that flexibility. Now, while that was good at that time, but over time you find that if people are not coming together, then you lose certain things. You lose a little bit of learning, especially people who join the company early on, they struggle to learn. You lose the contacts, the culture of the company, and you lose your own, how you develop as a leader. Yeah? So those are things that is lost. Therefore, it's good for people to come and meet people sometime and work together in a physical way. So I think what this has done is, in a way, change the thinking of people. Yeah. So what companies have said, yes, you can be flexible, but you got to come and work 1 or 2 days a week, and that will help people to really come and connect and meet people. Now, when you want people to come 1 or 2 days a week, you wanted to be in a good office. You wanted to be in a better kind of a location. You can't just keep then. You need a better environment for them to come together. So therefore, conversely, while people are coming for less time, but you got to ensure that your thing is much better, and that is done in a better way. So therefore, that's how it is.
But do you think it will stop at 1 or 2 days a week, or it will go back to 5 days a week?
Well, depends on the industry. There are some industries that may be doing 5 days a week. There are some industries where people have to come, like manufacturing and all of those. But but the tech industry would be happy to do, more flexible. So they may still probably work 2, 3 days a week, and 1 or 2 days a week will definitely be remote and flexible.
I hear that Google has said that it's not only 100% work from office, but also work from their desk. Whereas prior to pandemic, there's huge flexibility. People could operate from the canteen, restaurant, lawn, beanbag, but that flexibility they decided to reduce. Why would they do so?
Not really. I think some companies have it. I think some companies move to what they call as a hoteling system. They said you don't have a fixed place, it's a hoteling kind of a thing. And I think they're evolving. They all keep on reviewing it, etc. But I think what they're saying is if you're coming for just 2 days a week, you've got to be with your team. So maybe you have a much more nice place where you can work together as a team, much more nice place where you can connect with people because there may still be 1 or 2 people remotely. So how do you connect with them? So that's also there. But I think companies still allow people to go, work on their own. I mean, I've not seen companies completely stopping it. But yes, that's still there. But I think it's just that when you're there together, you got to be much more in your team. You got to be connect and work in a much more what I will call as a hybrid way. So that's why companies have to now even upskill or upgrade their physical infrastructure.
Uh, in Infosys, what are the managers of the HR following? Is it still 1 or 2 days, or is it 5 days,
Well, I've
or is
left
it?
Infosys now, so I don't know what is the latest that is there. But I think see every company would like people to come to work 2, 3 days a week, especially in tech sector where I think they've been used to fully remote. So I think the idea is that over time you'll probably have more people come 2, 3 days a week.
But this work from home, how is it impacting the productivity of people?
Well, there are various studies, and I think it has got many different views of the problem. Early days, I think the productivity went up, yeah, and I think people were early days of the pandemic when you went on remote, the productivity went up because you had good momentum, you were working as a team, but the productivity was high. As newer people started joining the company, and maybe that is towards 20, to 21, 22, when this great resignation, great of all of that. When a lot of new people came, then I think the productivity came down because their own learning, their ability to catch things were not as good. And the advantage of working from home is that people can be flexible and they work longer hours also. They may take a break here or there, but they still work longer hours and they were more productive early on. But lots of new people coming, I think productivity falls. A new project, early project stage productivity will be low because it'll take longer time for the project to come together. But once they are established, productivity will improve. So yes, I think so. Therefore, these were all the factors that were there that really impacted. I think you as an organization have to look, and this varies from organization to organization, industry to industry. There's no one rule that is there. I think on one hand, there is technology, and the people also want a little bit of flexibility to work remotely. Yeah, and technology is there to enable it. The question is, how do you really get the best out of it? How do you get the best productivity, the best culture, the best learning for your team, and the best outcome for the business? All of this. And for that, each industry have to think what is right for them. Yeah, and come up with that. Productivity definitely will fall if you're fully remote. If you're learning, it will fall because you're not connected, you're not learning. Yeah, it falls there. So yeah, there are many angles to this, and I think we've got to look at it in a much more systems way in terms of what is it that we want, longer term, what is sustainable, what is it that people want in terms of their own flexibility, and how do you really build something that is unique? Yeah, and that will vary from company to company.
Thank you very much. That's very insightful again. Now, the last part is how important or critical employee engagement is for both productivity and retention?
Well, a lot of theories are there in terms of, uh, clearly employee engagement is good, but the question is what really now engages employees? Yeah. And what is it that you got to really keep measuring? I think more and more you see. I think what engages employees are three or four things. Firstly, the work itself. Yeah, I think that's very important. And how is the work, the learning in the work, the challenge in the work, and how do they see that work leading them to their own purpose? Is this work in a way to really help them meet what they want to really achieve in life? So that's something very important. The second part is the work is the team that they work with, the manager and the team. And that's also important because are they happy working in the team? Do they have a supportive manager and they do feel like coming together and working? So that's another important one. I think the third part is really and the part that's coming up more nowadays is recognition because more and more young people they see, and I think recognition is important. And how do you really build that recognition that is there? So I think these are all the elements: the work itself, the challenge, the learning in the work, and how it leads to a larger purpose. The team in terms of the manager, whether they find a good team, psychological safety, etc., and the company policies, etc., in the company which helps them, as well as the overall kind of mission of the company. Does it really inspire them? So all of these three really are elements that are there which really look at how people will be engaged. So at different levels in the organization, different levers would be much stronger. Yeah, and I think you have to really think about it, which levers are strong where, and see how you want to really drive that. So therefore, as I said, the EVP of a fresher is very different from an EVP of somebody who is a project manager who spent 10, 15 years in the company. So both would look for different things in a company, and engaging them would be very different things. So you got to really keep that in mind. So yes, I think I have over the years learned that engagement is not one score, not one kind of a thing. It's a mix of many things. You have to identify what it is that you got to do and do that. I think what we want is for people to be at their best. Yeah. And what will make the confluence of all these elements for people to be at their best is something we've got to see. And it may vary from different individuals. You got to keep that in mind. Vary for different personas, as they say, and therefore keep that in mind. If not for individuals, at least for different personas, and then plan what you want to do to really get the best out of it. So therefore, the role of the manager and the team is important. The role of the work and how this whole work and learning is constructed is important. And the role of the company, its mission, its policies, and how it enables people to be at their best is also important. So you got to really get the best of all three.
And how was engaging employees different from levers to HL to Infosys?
Well, each industry looks at it very differently. I think if you look at in levers, it was more about work challenge, mentoring, and growth. I think that was more important than various other things. I think in Infosys, it is about kind of opportunities that people get for growth, opportunities they get to learn, yeah, and compensation. That becomes quite important for the thing. Airtel was all about, again, it's a mix. I think it's about how do I get the opportunity to grow, learn something more. So those are all. So you got to really find that and get that as a focus for it.
So, what will be your advice to the young HR professionals as well as the young business professionals?
Well, frankly, I think the world of business and HR, I see, is going to change. What we were growing up with may not be there for the next 10 years. Yeah? Lots of changes are happening, changes in technology, changes in the speed of business, the use of AI, many things will come in. But I think what we need is, in all of this, I think two or three characteristics are going to be very important. I think number one is, as HR leader, you got to bring in the outside in view to your teams and to the company. Yeah? So you understand what's happening in the world, the business, etc., and try and bring that perspective in. So you got to really be somebody who connects the dots, somebody who sees the patterns, and that's very important. Don't be too narrow in what you're doing, but look at it and say, okay, what's changing and how you want to really bring that in. So that's the thing that I would suggest for anyone, HR or business leader. I think the second one would be, here is the role of how you influence people, how you bring creativity and think differently is going to be very important. You may get the basic analysis done through various systems nowadays, but it is your role is going to be about influencing people. Your role is going to be about setting the agenda. Your role is going to be about thinking of creative solutions. Those are the areas that you got to really work with. So understand the business well, understand what's happening around the world, the environment. Build your credibility as a leader who has the intent of the business in clearly in mind, and you work on it. And therefore, that credibility will help you influence people and come up with the right solutions. Practical, business-oriented solutions. Also creative, and that's how you're going to be. So the basics of a business don't change. Business always want to grow. They provide the right services to the customer. And the basics of HR never changes. But with so much change around in technology, so much change around in what's happening, I think these are the things that will be very important for us. So as leaders, you understand the business, understand the culture, see how we want to build the culture of our organization and put the right steps there. Think about connecting the dots and bringing in outside in perspective. Think about influencing people, and with the right solutions, and bring your own creativity to it. So those would be important for business leaders and HR leaders for the future.
No, that's fantastic advice, and I think technology is going to change a lot of behaviors, and the behavioral change will require managing those behaviors differently, and that would lead to change in the approach. While the business and people will remain reasonably similar, what would be your advice to We Matter?
No, I think you're doing lots of good work, but the key is you got to really say, how do you bring in a fresh perspective? How do you bring in stay ahead of the curve, and how do you help companies and leaders to stay ahead of the curve? I think that's the only focus that I think is important. So all the best.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And with this, so we will bring our today's session with Krish Shankar to a close. And I'm sure we have had a lot of new learning, a lot of good learning, and it will be useful uh, for our friends, colleagues in both business and HR. And happy learning. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Krish. Thanks for
Thank
your
you.
presence, and thanks for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. All the best.